Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the instant match reaction Nottingham Forest 2, Everton 2 at the City Ground, the City Stadium, the City Ground, whatever it's called this afternoon. I've not long walked through my door, but I would be lying if I was to say I hadn't had a little 10 or 15 minute sit down, just trying to sort of comprehend this game of football and this result and what it means or what it doesn't mean, for Everton's season and for Everton's situation at the moment, because it's really, really, really hard for me to look at this performance and think very positively of it. Now that might just be because I'm absolutely hungover and hanging out of my backside because I've had a long night last night on the ale. I had very little sleep and I was on the coach at 9:30 today, so I've been very low on energy all day. Even when both goals went in, I was trying to muster up as much energy as I had to get excited, but. I've desperately been trying to search for the positives and look at this from a positive angle. It's a point away from home, a point against the side that is sort of in and around our position, etc., etc. A point that maybe before the game we'd have all taken if it was offered to us. But I just can't help but feel like that was a game that Everton really, really needed to win, and a game that Everton really should have been winning. And for that matter, it very much feels like a loss, this one. I've come home from away days many a times this season and last season and, over the years, and Everton have been beaten and Everton have been beaten heavily. And, I've felt bad, I've felt upset, I've felt annoyed, I've felt angry, but all of those feelings have been very sort of obvious to me and have been very present with the emotion at the time. This one is really, really, really different. I just feel really let down today. And as I said, obviously we haven't lost the game. We've gotten a point out of it. And at the end of the day, a point away from home, isn't the worst result in the grand scheme of things. But it does really, really feel like a loss, this one, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because where do we go from here? Everton scored 2 goals in a game of football for the first time today since October when we beat Crystal Palace 3-0. At Goodison Park. Now, we all know Everton don't typically score 3 goals. Everton don't typically score a goal. 2 goals. Everton don't typically score a goal, never mind 2. And we all know Everton don't typically lead in games of football either. So we've addressed over the last 2 weeks about Everton's need to take chances and Everton's need to be a bit more creative and the need to be, a bit more cutthroat in front of goal and to get on top of games, etc., etc. And this afternoon, we were ahead twice. We were ahead once with a penalty, which was a penalty we should have we should have been given. We were given it and we took it. And then we were ahead again not long after Nottingham Forest had equalised. And yet we showed today that we are incapable of holding on to a lead, an important lead, when we need to. And that for me is so worrying, because I just look at that and think, well, what does that say about the remaining however many games, 14, 15 games of the season or whatever we've got left? As to that, we haven't seen Everton go ahead many times recently, and yet we've done it today. And let's not sugarcoat this, by the way. We've done it today against a really, really poor side. Nottingham Forest are a really, really, truly atrocious football team. And people will come at me, Nottingham Forest fans will come at me, oh, you're jealous of this, that and the other. No, I'm not, because Everton are also a truly atrocious football team as well. So it's not coming from a point of jealousy. Everton are also absolutely awful. I thought that game of football today was, for a neutral, would have been a massively entertaining game of football, because it was 2 not very good teams scrapping, fighting, and making the best of each other's mistakes effectively. Nottingham Forest aren't very good, so to go 1-0 up and lose the lead via a defensive mistake again, and then to go 2-1 up and ride that for until the final 20 minutes of the game, 15 minutes of the game, and then again give that lead up, it's just, it's really, really sickening, and it just gives me a horrible feeling of what's to come for the rest of the season. If we can't keep a hold of a lead against a really, really poor Nottingham Forest team, then how are we going to do it, against some of the better teams that we'll be facing this season. And I know some people will say, well, it was away from home, so it's different, but it isn't different because we've watched Everton at Goodison this season lose to teams like Southampton and Leicester and Wolves and teams that are also not very good football teams we've seen Everton lose to this season. So it's not different because we're away from home. We were playing a poor side today and we had the lead twice and we couldn't keep a hold of it. And for me, I think the manager is to blame partly for that, because ultimately, I think for that last half an hour of the game, or certainly the 15 to 20 minutes that preceded Nottingham Forest's equaliser, you could clearly tell that a number of those players on that pitch were blowing out of their arse, for lack of a better phrase. Damari Gray was blowing out of his arse. Alex Iwobi seemed like he was blowing out of his arse. The midfield, Amadou Onana, was abysmal in that second half. Decore was, as I said, every decision he was making was wrong. He was blowing out of his arse, and yet the manager still waited until we conceded the equaliser before he decided to make a change. But you also have to put some responsibility on the players. You know, Nottingham Forest were always going to have periods of possession today and periods of control because they were the home team and it was a massively important game of football for them as well. But they're not very good. They're not an unbelievable side. The goals they scored, once again, were mistakes. Once again, gifted opportunities by Everton. The second goal is another mistake by Abdoulaye Decore. I don't know how many that is now in the last 3 weeks. I know we scored our second today, and that's all well and good. But when you go and effectively give a goal away up the other end, it doesn't really mean much. And the first goal today was a mistake by Michael Keane, and then nobody followed Brennan Johnson into the box. So you can't expect to pick up points and win games of football when you're making mistakes like that. And let me just contextualise this. Everton need to start winning games of football. It's as simple as that. Getting a point away from home at Nottingham Forest is absolutely sound if you're winning all of your home games. It's absolutely sound if Everton had beaten Aston Villa convincingly last weekend at Goodison Park and were guaranteed near enough to go and beat Brentford next weekend at Goodison Park. A point away at Nottingham Forest then becomes a decent point. You're away from home, our game, our ground to go. They've been very good at home this season, granted. I think they've only lost once since October, or they haven't lost since October, something like that. So it's not the general result or the fact that we've drawn to Nottingham Forest away from home, because they're a decent side at home. They've got a decent record, but you will not stay in the Premier League if you do not win games of football. And that was a game of football today that Everton should have won, that Everton had the chance to win, that Everton had the chance to kill off at 2-1. There was moments at 2-1 where Damari Gray had the ball in a really promising area. And I get it, Damari Gray was playing up front, so maybe, he's to blame for this situation. But he's got the ball in a really promising area out on the wing, and there's nobody in the middle for him to cross it to, or nobody in the middle for him to try and create something for. Same with, Dwight McNeil. I thought Dwight McNeil had a good game today. He had the same situations where he's got the ball out wide and there's nobody in there. Now, for me, if we're 2-1 up, and you've got half an hour to go, and we're pushing for the third goal, and Nottingham Forest are sort of feeling the pressure a little bit like they were, why is Sean Dyche not going, I know what I'm going to do. I'll lash Ellis Sims up there, and I'll say to him, just sit in and around that 6-yard box. Just sit in and around that 6-yard box, and when one of these wingers has got the ball, they'll throw a cross in, get up, and win the header. Even Mope, just be looking to have somebody in there that could cause a threat and potentially get the third goal. Because if we get the third goal, it's pretty much game over. Their heads would drop. You kill the game off and you go again. And it's a fantastic away result. But he didn't. He didn't decide to make the change until, as I said, it was too late and the players were absolutely on their arses. But it also tells you a lot about this playing squad. They're incapable of holding on to a lead twice against a poor side, a really, really poor side. And as I said, I know some people will say we were away from home, we got a point, you take it, you move on. I can't honestly sit here. I mean, Mr. Potato, I don't know what game you're watching. Everton were lucky to get a point. I don't know what game you've been watching, to be honest. You're talking out your arse. I don't know how anybody can sit there, and again, I'm not telling anybody how to feel or having a go at anybody for how they feel, but I just don't know how anybody can look at this game positively. I'm sorry if it comes across negative. I'm sorry if you don't like it. I'm sorry if it means you'll dislike the video or you'll unsubscribe or you come here for positivity. But I've just watched 90 minutes of football in a game that Everton should have been winning. And Everton aren't winning games of football at the moment. So as I said, it's not like we beat Villa convincingly and, we're pretty much guaranteed to go and beat Brentford convincingly, and this is a decent point in between. How many of us are confident we'll go and beat Brentford at the weekend? Probably not many. So games like this against sides that are really, really poor and are in and around you, whether they play that at home, away from home, or on the fucking moon, become imperative to win, especially when you go ahead twice in these games. Like I said, it really, really, really feels like a loss to me. It does, and I'm sorry if that comes across negative. I'm sorry if that is the not. And again, I'll hold my hands up. Maybe that is because I'm absolutely shattered and I've had a long 24-hour period, and I've just been sat on a couch for hours. Maybe that is that, but I just can't help but feel like that was a really, really big missed opportunity. And it almost sort of, well, it doesn't almost, it means that the game next week against Brentford is now an absolute must-win. An absolute must-win. Because we're not winning games of football. We've already addressed the fact we don't score goals. We've already addressed the fact we don't create many chances. So in a game today where we did score a couple of goals and we did take a couple of chances, we still didn't manage to come away with all 3 points. And that is worrying for me in itself. And listen, as I said, for me, I do partially blame the manager because I think he should have made substitutions. Prime example, Steve Cooper, Nottingham Forest manager, he made the substitutions. He brought a couple of players on when he could see they were struggling. And okay, the players he brought on weren't necessarily of great quality, and obviously they didn't score the goals, but even just bringing somebody like Andre Ayew on, somebody like Emmanuel Dennis, fresh legs, players that are in there that can run around and can, put us under a little bit of pressure, can at least have a go and try and sort of, try and muster up an equaliser. What did we do? We waited, and then brought Tom Davis on and Neil Maupay. Now, I know there's not many options on the bench, I get that. James Garner was on the bench today. So he must have been fit in some capacity to be able to get on the pitch. Even if it was for the last 20 minutes, why not throw him on? We had 3 or 4 occasions where the wide players had the ball in wide areas and could have crossed it, but we had nobody in the box. So why not throw that 6-foot centre forward on you've got sat on the bench? He mightn't be great, he mightn't be good enough, he mightn't be experienced enough, but at least he provides a focal point to aim at. And then if he misses 2 sitters, then you go, well, at least the manager brought him on to try and ultimately he has to take responsibility for missing those chances. It's games like that for me that you really just sort of look at and think, that's a missed opportunity. And when you're in a relegation battle and you're not winning games of football and you've won 1 away game all season, and, in 2 weeks' time you've got Chelsea, Tottenham, and Man United within the course of 3 weeks, they just sort of, it really, really frustrates me, and it really grinds me gears how Everton have not managed to come away winning that game of football. Again, I'm not saying it's all over. I'm not saying we're absolutely guaranteed to go down now. I'm not saying this is the be-all and end-all, but what I'm saying is this was a big opportunity against the poor team that we've missed. They really, really, really were there for the taking. And listen, I applaud Sean Dyche for a couple of the decisions he made. I applaud him for putting in Ben Godfrey at left back. And some people don't think Ben Godfrey had a good game. I thought he looked exposed, but I thought generally his pace, helped them out of a couple of situations today. But I was happy that Ben, I know Mikalenko was obviously injured, but that was a decision that I would have made anyway. And, Damari Gray up front probably is our best option at the moment, given, our other 2 options aren't particularly good at football, or certainly not experienced enough. But it just winds you up, when you see Bournemouth losing narrowly to Arsenal, unlucky at Arsenal, and you see Southampton grinding out wins, and you see, other teams grinding out performances and grinding out wins away from home and at home, and then you watch Everton, effectively give up what should have been a comfortable 3 points. And I don't mind saying this, and I will say it because I believe it. I don't think any of the other teams around us, Bournemouth, Leicester, I don't even know who's around us anymore, because it makes me feel physically sick to my stomach to look at the Premier League table. Southampton, Bournemouth, Leeds, West Ham, Leicester. I don't think any of those teams would have drawn that game today. I think all of those teams would have beaten Nottingham Forest today. And that's what really, really, really worries me. And again, I don't want to keep banging on about who the big issue is, because we all know what the big issue is. The Blues says lack of trust in the bench is the only explanation. Absolutely, mate. And I'll say it. I've said it before and I will say it again. These absolute criminals at the top of this football club should be in prison for how they have neglected this football club. Bill Kenwright, Denise Barrett-Baxendale, all of them, you are never welcome anywhere near Everton Football Club ever again. Do not dare stay in our football club ever again. Because ultimately this is down to you. Farhad Mashiri, ultimately this is down to you. That we haven't got an option to bring off the bench. That we haven't got somebody that with 20 minutes to go we can say, go and get a third goalie and win this game off. What did Villa do to us last weekend? It was 1-0, it was ropey. They looked at the bench and they went, yeah, we've got somebody who can come on and win this game. So they brought him on and he come on and he guaranteed the win in Buendia. We should have had somebody on the bench today that we looked at and we went, go and get the third goal, lad, and win what for me was in the first 45 minutes a game I looked at and thought, if we don't win this, it will be down to Everton, it won't be down to Nottingham Forest, and it was. But yeah, good to see Damari back on the score sheet, of course. Really well taken penalty. The Corey's, again, good goal, but ultimately it was his mistake for their equaliser, so I'm not going to sit here and get too carried away about Abdoulaye Doucouré's goal, but yeah. And Tony, I can blame the owner. I really, really can blame the owner, because I don't care how much money he's pumped into the football club. I don't care how much money he's given to the football club. It's like somebody having a child, isn't it? And every single time that child wants something, instead of teaching them lessons or saying, no, actually, you're not going to get that for nothing. You're gonna have to be good, or you're gonna have to do your homework or whatever. Every single time that child wants something, you give them your credit card, and they go out and they spend $2,000 on toys on your credit card, and then they act like a bit of a brat a couple of weeks later, and you say, well, it's not my fault because I give them all that money to go and spend, so that's not my fault. It absolutely is the owner's fault. Absolutely is the owner's fault. But yeah, I just, again, maybe it's the hangover, maybe it's the lack of sleep, maybe it's just because it's a Sunday and I genuinely don't like Sundays, but I just can't help but feel absolutely, it's Tony says, I only follow football a little, glad to see. Is this Tony McEwen? Sorry, I didn't know this was you, mate. Sorry. No, I'm just saying, mate, it's all of their fault, it's collective, it's a collective. I just feel like today was a massively missed opportunity, and I know some people will say, but we were away and it was a good point, and that's sound. And do you know if we go and beat Brentford next week, then I might look at that and go, 4 points out of them 2 games, that's a decent return, that. But if we lose to Brentford next week, then all of a sudden we're looking at the Forest game thinking, how didn't we win that? And this just strikes me as one of them games that we might look back at the end of the season and go, that was one we should have won and we haven't won. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. Obviously, we'll dive more in depth into this game in the game review tomorrow. We'll do have the play ratings going up shortly as well. If you have enjoyed it, please leave a like. I'm going to go and do the play ratings and then have something to eat, watch a film and go to bed, because, yeah. The referee today, by the way, was absolutely embarrassing. I'm not blaming him for the defeat. I'm not blaming him for the performance, but some of his decisions today were fucking atrocious. We should have had a second penalty. Steve Cooper talks absolutely nonsense, mate. Absolutely nonsense. But, yeah, there you go. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. We'll be back at the play range shortly. Nice one. See you later.